Hello everyone. Have you ever wondered why a simple vitamin deficiency once caused thousands of people to lose their minds and their lives? Today we are exploring niacin and the systemic cascade it controls in our body. Let us begin with understanding what niacin actually is. Niacin comes to us in three different forms. The first is nicotinic acid, which is found in plant based foods like nuts, legumes, and grains. In high supplemental doses, it is used to lower LDL cholesterol, but it causes a distinct skin flushing. The second form is nicotinamide, found in animal based foods like meat and poultry. This is the preferred therapeutic form for treating deficiency because it does not cause skin flushing. The third source is tryptophan, an amino acid found in high protein foods like turkey and dairy. This gets converted in the liver into niacin, but this conversion requires iron, riboflavin, and vitamin B6 to succeed. Now let us look at how absorbed niacin fuels the body. Niacin powers more than 400 enzymes through what we call the NAD nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide and NADP nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate engine. NAD acts as the catabolic engine. It oxidizes carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and its output is ATP, which is the body's ultimate energy currency. It also helps maintain genome integrity and controls gene expression. On the other side, NADP acts as the anabolic engine. It enables cellular synthesis and defense, produces cholesterol and fatty acids, and maintains critical antioxidant functions in our cells. Next, let us understand where we actually get this energy from. Direct sources with high bioavailability include beef liver, chicken breast, and sockeye salmon, which are absorbed directly as NAD and NADP. However, plant and grain sources have only about 30% bioavailability unless treated with alkali. There is also a conversion pathway from tryptophan. It takes about 60 milligrams of tryptophan to produce just 1 milligram of niacin. For example, a 3-ounce serving of turkey breast contains around 180 milligrams of tryptophan, which converts internally to about 3 milligrams of niacin. This brings us to an interesting agricultural conundrum involving maize and sorghum. Maize contains adequate niacin, but it is biologically locked, meaning it stays bound to carbohydrates. Populations relying heavily on corn without meat developed rapid deficiency. Ancient indigenous populations in the Americas solved this by treating maize with lime or wood ashes, a process called nixtamalization, a process in which the grain is soaked and cooked in an alkaline solution, usually lime water, which increases niacin availability. On the other hand, sorghum, known as jowar, created a different problem. This was discovered in the Telangana region of India, where populations eating sorghum developed deficiency despite having adequate precursors. The reason was an excess of the amino acid leucine, which interfered with the body's ability to convert tryptophan into niacin. Now let us look at how much niacin our body actually requires daily. Children need about 8 to 12 milligrams per day. Adult females require 14 milligrams, adult males require 16 milligrams, and during pregnancy and lactation, this requirement increases to 17 to 18 milligrams per day. Interestingly, blood levels of niacin are unreliable for diagnosis. The gold standard is measuring urinary excretion of a compound called N1-methyl nicotinamide. Let us go deeper into diagnostic precision. There are three key measurements used clinically. The first is urinary excretion, the gold standard, where levels above 17.5 micromoles per day are adequate and levels below 5.8 indicate deficiency. The second is called the niacin number, which is the ratio of NAD to NADP concentrations in whole blood multiplied by 100. A value below 130 indicates deficiency because NAD drops while NADP remains constant. The third is the Niacin index, the ratio of red blood cell NAD to NADP. A value below 1.0 indicates high risk of deficiency. High pressure liquid chromatography is highly sensitive for measuring all these markers. Now let us understand what happens when niacin levels drop severely. When NAD and NADP coenzymes are depleted, cellular respiration collapses. The body initiates a systemic triage, shutting down non-essential functions and rationing energy. This is not a random collection of symptoms. It is a progressive chronological failure of the human energy grid, and this condition is called pellagra, meaning rough skin. Pellagra was historically endemic in the early 20th century in the southern United States and Europe due to total dietary reliance on unnixtamalized corn. Today, it is largely eradicated in industrialized nations, but it still persists among displaced refugees, the deeply impoverished, and patients with certain secondary clinical conditions. Let us walk through the stages of this disease. In stage 1, we see the metabolic brownout. Basal metabolic rate drops directly due to failure of electron transfer, leading to reduced glucose oxidation into ATP. This also causes cold intolerance because chemical energy production is compromised. Clinically, these early signs are frequently misdiagnosed as general fatigue, occurring long before the classic symptoms of pellagra appear. In stage 2, we see mucosal collapse or digestive breakdown. The oral cavity develops glossitis and stomatitis, where the tongue becomes beefy red, raw, and atrophic. The esophagus develops dysphagia or difficulty swallowing due to intense inflammation. The stomach develops gastritis and achlorhydria, meaning a complete absence of hydrochloric acid. This creates a vicious cycle where intestinal inflammation leads to severe watery or bloody diarrhea, which leads to malabsorption of all nutrients, which accelerates starvation of the brain and nervous system. In stage 3, we see integumentary failure or skin changes. A symmetric sunburn-like rash appears, restricted exclusively to sun-exposed areas. These lesions have sharp, clearly defined borders separating damaged tissue from healthy skin. The progression moves from mild inflammation to degeneration of the skin's outer layer, then blistering, which is called wet pellagra, followed by hyperpigmentation and severe skin sloughing. In stage 4, we witness the neurological blackout affecting mental health. Early neurological signs include lethargy, apathy, profound irritability, and anxiety. Cognitive decline follows, with poor concentration progressing to severe memory loss and spatial disorientation. This escalates into severe clinical depression, vivid visual and auditory hallucinations, and delirium. In the end stage, patients show aggressive, paranoid, and suicidal behaviors, leading directly to overt dementia. In stage 5, we reach systemic shutdown, the advanced failure. Central failure involves severe brain inflammation resulting in stupor and eventual coma. Neuromuscular triage causes profound muscle weakness and abnormal sensations due to nerve cell damage. Physical collapse leads to total loss of appetite and catastrophic rapid weight loss. At the end stage, unresponsiveness culminates in death as cellular coenzymes fail to generate even the minimum ATP required for basic bodily functions. So, why does the body fail in this particular pattern? Pellagra is not 4 distinct diseases, it is a single predictable failure of the body's most demanding tissues, all driven by NAD depletion. The skin epithelium and gut mucosa are highly regenerative tissues that require constant, massive cellular turnover, an incredibly energy-intensive process. Meanwhile, the brain and nerves are the highest consumers, demanding continuous, uninterrupted metabolic fuel. When the NAD power grid fails, tissues that cannot pause their energy demands simply disintegrate. This gives us the clinical profile known as the 3Ds. Dementia arises from neuronal damage, driving lethargy, progressing to paranoia, hallucinations, and delirium. Dermatitis appears as a symmetrical sunburn like rash on sun exposed areas, sometimes called Casal's necklace around the neck, and also affecting the hands in a glove and stocking pattern. Diarrhea results from severe gastroinflammation, producing a raw, beefy red tongue, achlorhydria, and watery or bloody stools. Many clinicians consider death the unofficial fourth D, representing the ultimate outcome of untreated cellular energy failure. Let us now look at who is most at risk in modern times, a condition called secondary pellagra. The alcoholic is at risk because chronic alcohol use induces malnutrition, reduces intestinal absorption, and directly impairs tryptophan conversion. The undernourished individual faces severe caloric restriction due to anorexia nervosa, extreme poverty, or advanced AIDS. The malabsorber includes patients with Crohn's disease or chronic diarrhea, where intestinal transport is fundamentally broken. And finally, the medicated or genetic category includes patients on long-term pharmacological therapies or those with rare genetic metabolic disorders. Let us examine specific mechanisms behind secondary deficiency. Hartnup disease, a genetic condition, impairs renal and intestinal transport of amino acids, causing tryptophan to be lost in urine, leaving none for niacin synthesis. Carcinoid syndrome, caused by slow-growing gastrointestinal tumors, leads to excessive serotonin production, diverting tryptophan entirely to serotonin and depleting the substrate needed for niacin. Isoniazid, a tuberculosis medication, binds to vitamin B6 and blocks an enzyme called kynurenase, inhibiting the body's natural tryptophan conversion and absorption. Now, how do we manage supplementation and its side effects? Nicotinic acid supplementation, especially in doses of 500 to 1000 milligrams, triggers severe but temporary cutaneous vasodilation, causing redness, warmth, and itching, known as the niacin flush. Very high toxic doses also carry risks of liver damage and significantly elevated blood sugar. Nicotinamide, on the other hand, has a slightly different chemical structure that entirely bypasses this vasodilation pathway. This makes it the universally preferred, highly safe form for rapidly treating systemic niacin deficiency without patient discomfort. Let us look at the actual medical management and treatment protocol. Step 1 is acute intervention, administering 250 to 300 milligrams per day of oral nicotinamide following World Health Organization protocol, given in divided doses continuously for 3 to 4 weeks. Step 2 is supportive care, which includes prescribing a B complex multivitamin to correct other deficiencies, mandating strict avoidance of sunlight exposure, and mandating absolute abstinence from alcohol. Step 3 is the clinical prognosis, which is highly favorable. Neurological and dermatological symptoms typically show rapid improvement within just days of targeted therapy. Finally, let us discuss prevention strategies at a larger scale. Public health policy, through mandatory enrichment of processed flour and cereals, virtually eradicated primary pellagra in the United States. Clinical prophylaxis involves mandatory B complex supplementation for high-risk patients, such as those prescribed isoniazid for tuberculosis. And at the individual level, maintaining a diverse dietary intake rich in animal proteins, legumes, and fortified grains remains key to prevention. To summarize everything we have learned today, niacin is the indispensable precursor to cellular energy through NAD. It is readily available in varied diets and can also be synthesized internally from tryptophan. When deficiency occurs, it triggers pellagra, a systemic collapse of the body's most metabolically demanding tissues. But the good news is that this condition can be prevented through public fortification and effectively cured with targeted nicotinamide therapy. Hope you have understood about the niacin and the systemic cascade of pellagra. If you found this video useful, please like and share it with your friends and colleagues. Thank you.